Hey guys, Steve here. Today we're going to be continuing the new series on kind of strategic thinking in this game. Here we're going to be talking about battleships, strategy, positioning, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking on the 5% of the game screen that deals with the strategy. That's of course the map in the top left corner. 95% of the screen is the first person shooter action type of a game. And that's 95% of the screen. Should not be 95% of your focus, though. If you want to improve as a World of Warships Legends player, and I certainly do, hopefully you do as well, in order to do that, a large part of improving in this game is to devote more and more attention to that very small portion of the game at the top left corner. Make sure you've gone to the settings and set the increase HUD size to the max. There's that option somewhere in there. If you want to do that, that'll increase the size of the map, make it even easier to focus on the strategy. So here for a battleship, we check the roster right off the bat. Not only are we looking at the enemy's team to see what they got, but we check out our own battleship lineup. We see we spawn down here with a battleship that's responsible for C. He's going perfectly broadside to our east. We can see that on the map. We also have a battleship that spawned to the southwest of B. He's primarily responsible for B. If he wants to spread out, he would go to the northwest. Then we'd have two battleships kind of in that half of the map to this half of the map. He's deciding to sail perfectly broadside down here. In fact, he wants to stack directly on top of us. We see that on the map. So, once we realize that, rather than lament our fate to have two battleships that aren't really positioning very well on this side, we're going to adjust our position. We'll talk about that more here in a sec. But battleships, what are we trying to do when we're looking at our position vis-a-vis our teammates? We want to create space. It does two very important things. Number one, it gives us more control of the map. You can see your control of the map as a battleship is the white firing range. So if we're all stacked into one square, as my team's attempting to do here, basically those white rings will more or less be stacked right on top of each other, and that'll minimize our map control to that circle that we're all kind of within. You know, we do have the one battleship going to the northwest. He's going to get wrecked very quickly. But if you could visualize all of your battleship firing rings on the map, you want them to spread out as much as possible. That's better map control. Battleships are important in terms of your team and their map control. Spreading out also creates crossfires. We talked about this a lot. We've already talked about this within this new series of videos, but it's an important topic. When it comes to scoring, and there's two concurrent scores in this game. There's the score at the top, which is reflective of control of objectives, and killing ships alters the score as well. That's not as important from a battleship's perspective. We're more focused on the other type of scoring in battleships. Both are important. Don't ignore it, of course. But more important from us is the team's total HP. That's the other score that's not on the scoreboard up there. But you start with adding up all the enemy's HP, and then you want to reduce it to 0. When that score hits 0, then you win the game. So as a battleship, you're really focused on damage in terms of scoring. You want to also support the other score. But why we're saying that is creating distance creates crossfires. Creating crossfires is a scoring play, because it allows you to reduce the enemy's HP pool much quicker when you're shooting them in the sides. So conceptually and from a strategic standpoint, creating crossfires, creating distance between the battleships is a method of scoring. So you need to view it like that. It's just a way to directly convert teams, red team's HP into, nothing, by converting it into damage, basically. So it's very important to consider that a scoring play. A very low scoring play for a battleship is to sit way in the back and shoot the other battleship on the red team that's sitting way in the back, nose in, pointing at you. You see this constantly. This is the most common battleship play in this game, actually, is just sitting in the back, shooting the most well-angled target on the enemy team, trading 1,000 damage here, 1,000 damage there. Very low scoring play. Very bad battleship play. So we're talking about creating these gaps. We're also going to talk about creating control of lanes here, and we're doing that by moving in this position. You can see the Tirpitz, the Chapayev, they're both kind of inclined to escape the eastern part of the map. They want to join their team, but by holding this line here, we're pinning these ships down, we're punishing them, or at least we're making it extremely dangerous for them to move forward. We are in an aggressive position here. We are susceptible to potentially getting torped if they can clear out the team to my northwest that's protecting me from those destroyers. But those ships to the north of me, the northwest, they're going to reposition and start hitting me in the broadsides. That's going to force us backwards. But right now, we're pinning the Tirpitz, we're pinning the Chapayev, we're preventing them from doing what they want to do. If they want to escape their sector, now they have to go basically straight north, and you can see where they're attempting to do that. We're going to keep pinning this Chapayev because I really want him dead. It would be a mistake to let him get away from this and reposition, heal, and continue to affect the game. So we're going to try and remove him. We're also shooting a lot at this Tirpitz. You can see on the map, if you're looking on the map, just how well angled he is against us, and that's why we're getting 3,000-4,000 damage against that Tirpitz. Not an ideal target, especially when we're looking on the map and we see these broadsides to the north. Why I'm not shooting them is we have an overload. We have more team weight on the eastern side of the map than they do, and if we can clear that flank out early, that'll allow us to push north. I can continue to pin them down from moving from the northwest to the east, and that would allow us to create new angles, new crossfires. So like World of Tanks, World of Warships, usually your team is going to have an advantage on one flank or the other. You want to clear that flank out as quickly as possible, eliminate those ships, and then use that new freedom to move on that side to create new crossfires, which crossfires, again, directly translate into increased scoring. So we're moving these pieces around as though we're playing a board game here. Initially, we were positioned by sea, but we saw, what's up with this board game, why it's a little more challenging, is because ideal if you're playing well, you're playing well, but the other aspects of your team usually are going to be playing really poorly. So rather than spacing themselves out, these battleships all clumped up together. It's just an interesting puzzle, Yes, it's frustrating, but you got to look at the board, say, how can I move my piece that I can control into the best position? So we picked up the piece, moved it 2 squares over, moved it 1 square up. Then we got access to those ships' sides. We cleared out the eastern flank. Now we're repositioning our ship backwards. And we're doing that to steepen the angle, create more distance for these targets, because we're very low health. By moving that piece forward aggressively, we put ourselves in a risky position. That was, you can argue, was it a good play or not? We can talk about that all day long. But the thinking was, I'm willing to play a risky play here in order to quickly clear this eastern flank out. We did do that. Now we've picked up the piece. Now we've moved the piece back 2 squares. We're trying to let this heal cycle. That'll happen in 20 more seconds. And if we can let these ships kind of focus on better looking targets for them, that'll give us a little bit of time to reset the situation, reevaluate, and maybe continue to be effective. Here the grosser, here's a good example of why if we're only looking at the game screen, it's misleading. Look at the game strategy screen, the map. That grosser is just about 45-degree angles on there. On the game screen, he looks basically broadside to me. Now, he's not quite angled enough. You can see that there we got him with a fairly decent 15K salvo or whatever. But again, by looking on that map as much as we're trying to do as a battleship player, we can spot those broadsides all day long. So just to reiterate, when we saw those broadsides earlier, why we weren't shooting at them was because we wanted to clear that eastern flank. You can debate, was that a good play or not? Maybe we should have shot those broadsides when we had the chance. I could definitely agree with you. I could also make a case for the contra in that situation. Alright, so for reviewing this more as a strategy game, we've picked up the piece, we've moved it back. Now let's say all the other players have kind of made their turn, and now it's our turn again. And then we've kind of evaluated what can we do here. I'm a little further back than I'd like to be. Like to be more centrally located this deep into the game. Our low health pool is kind of the main reason we're not. But centrally located, you can say centrally located U means pretty close to B. You can also use that to reference like an oval area around the three caps. If you drew kind of an oval, a circle around all three caps and didn't include anything else in there, if you're in that section, you're kind of centrally located. That's when you're going to have the best map control as a battleship. And if you see the white firing ring on here, if we were in B or anywhere within that oval in between all three of those caps, we'd have coverage of almost, 85% of the map. And this is a huge map, so even smaller maps, we'd have almost near control of the entire map being that close. But again, we were pushed back, we were getting whittled down, we made the aggressive play, which was, again, in my mind, successful. But now we've kind of repositioned, now we're repositioning again. We're trying to get back involved there. We also want to be looking at the white firing ring, though, and say, how much of the enemy team do we really need in there? If you have one target that's reliably going to be spotted, that's within your firing ring, you don't really need to move forward to get more targets in there. The more targets you have in your ring just means you're going to be in more and more red teams' firing rings on their map. And so when that happens, if they all decide they want to start firing at you at once, doesn't really matter what you do. They can focus you, they can kill you, they can burn you down. Not a lot you can do. So another benefit, and we can list 50, 60,000 benefits of looking on the map as much as possible. But another benefit is we can minimize how many ships can be shooting at us at any time, because we really have a good handle on where the enemy is, and then we can stay out of their range as much as possible. Just keep one target there. If we got one ship on the red team that's in your firing range, but he's going to be unspotted frequently or he's behind cover, that ship isn't really in your targetability zone. You need to have one ship that you can really be affecting. Otherwise, you're in an ineffective position. If you can't be shooting, especially as a battleship where your guns are the main point of your piece in this strategy game, if the guns are not in position to be deployed, then you need to pick up your piece and move it somewhere else. So battleships, huge part of the game is positioning. Luckily for you, you got plenty of time to be looking on the map. So shoot the shot, zoom out so you see anything coming at you, then look on the map. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, get in the habit, evaluate it, check your team, check the enemy team, check your armor angling, check your position, check your crossfires. Boom, you got a game. You got the win under your belt. So that's going to do it for that one, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. A lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave a lot. Love to hear from you. I'll see you all in our space.